who have this challenge can have it treated. But tonight, we're going to be talking to Brenda Roach, who is a psychologist. And Brenda, she told me, Dr. Barker is usually at the beginning and she's usually at the end. And we're going to be having a conversation with her. So I say goodnight to Brenda Roach, who's a psychologist. Good evening, Brenda. How are you doing?
Good evening. I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me this evening.
Oh, we're so happy to have you. And I also say good evening to Tamika Newton, of course, who is my partner in crime from Scarred, Not Shattered. Good evening, Tammy.
Hi,
Are
good
you
evening,
there?
good evening, good evening.
Hey, Tammy. And I also want to say a special good evening to the Public Relations Officer for the Katrina Endometriosis Fund Association, Tiffany Griffith. Good evening, Tiffany.
Hi, good evening.
Good. It's good to have you here. No, Lisa Bell is supposed to join us. Lisa actually has another online meeting, so we're hoping that Lisa will be able to join us. And as we talked about last week, Lisa doesn't actually have endometriosis. She has fibroids. Her challenge was fibroids, and there are some similarities. There's some differences as well. And we were able to find out what the challenge is, which are similar to what endometriosis causes, but they're different in diagnosis as well. So I want to start, I'm going to get to, but if you are in the Zoom, please, if you're not talking, please just mute your microphone because we're getting some feedback. So if you're not talking, I will call on you to get some opinions and some comments and suggestions a little later on. So just mute your microphones. But I want to start with Tiffany. Tiffany, for those who are now joining us for the first time, just give us a little information about the Katrina Endometriosis Fund Association, for which you are the PRO. Are you there? Is Tiffany there?
Hello? Hello,
Hi,
can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. It seems to be having a little difficulties with my microphone. So bear with me.
So let's hope that stays for the whole hour or so.
Well,
this is information about the fund association.
Well, with KEFA, I would have known Katrina for over 9-10 years, and after becoming PRO, we would have come together and did a lot of events, promoting, going out there and giving speeches to help support ladies with these issues that we have. We also go there looking for donations to help to do care packages for females who don't have the funds to help get things for themselves that a female will need sanitary ways. So that's basically what we do as KEFA here.
So to educate and to bring awareness, and of course to help women who are having these challenges.
Exactly. Right. Support them as much as we can.
Okay, well, we'll talk to you a little later down, Tiffany. I'm just talking to see if Aisha is in the group tonight. Is Aisha in? I'm not sure if she's in the group as yet. Aisha? Or Aisha? No? All right. You're here? Okay, maybe not. All right, well, we will come back. Okay, so before we move on, of course, I want to say good evening to Katrina. Katrina is not in the chat with us this evening. She's not feeling well, and we're wishing her much better. We're hoping that she'll be with us next week. But we are going to continue on with this conversation, as I said, discussing the loneliness of living with pain. And our guest is Brenda Roach, psychologist, and we hope to be talking to Lisa Bell, who may join us later. And of course, we're going to talk to Tamika Newton as well from Scarred, Not Shattered, the Women Empowerment Group. So Brenda, when we were chatting earlier before we came on, you were telling me, as I said, that you are usually at the end. So the topic is the loneliness of living with pain. What are some of the challenges? I mean, it can't be easy living in constant pain all the time. What are some of the challenges women face dealing with endometriosis, of which pain is a big part?
Well, of course, yes. Good night to everyone who is joining and who is still on. So as we were discussing a bit earlier, Dale, some of the challenges that exist are women who are misdiagnosed. So I remember listening to part of the conversation last week that you had with Dr. Barker. And as he mentioned, sometimes it can take up to 5 years for a woman to be diagnosed with endometriosis. Yes. So that is one of the challenges. Another challenge is that people who do not have the condition really don't understand what it is like to live with constant pain every month. So that in itself is a challenge. It also gets to be frustrating. It gets to be very draining when you have to keep explaining why you're feeling the way that you are feeling. And if you don't have that strong support system, or if you don't have that network of persons who will rally around you and support you, especially as it relates to employment, family life, social life, then you can understand how isolated someone can begin to feel when having such a condition. There's also feeling not heard. So for instance, you go to a doctor, you explain how you're feeling, then to hear, okay, well, that's kind of normal to have, a painful menstrual cycle, when really and truly it's not. So let me just give you some painkillers, see how that works, or let me put you on the pill for a little bit, see how that works. And so constantly have to be going to explain and advocate for yourself that this is something real that's happening to me, but no one is listening. So feeling like you're not heard.
Yeah. And then of course it is the constant pain. But let's go back to what you said, feeling not being heard. So, a woman has so many interactions. She's a mother, she's an employee, or she may have her own business. She may or may not be in a relationship. So let's deal with it from work-wise. What are some of the challenges women face work-wise? When they're suffering from endometriosis and all this pain, because you said they're not heard. So what are some of the things that women are told in the workplace?
Well, in the workplace, it's a tough one because sometimes women are told you're absent. You have too many absent days each month out of work. So that is essentially time that you're not being productive for the employer. And of course, that comes down to dollars and cents, right? Businesses like to be productive and earning money, capital. So each time that a female has to stay home from work due to these heavy menstrual cycles or the immense pain that they feel, then that adds a layer of stress to the woman who is experiencing that.
Right. Good. And in the relationships. Okay, go ahead. You finish.
I was going to just mention secrecy, the secrecy that goes along with it. So for instance, if you have an employer that you cannot talk to, about what you may be experiencing. So that there's some females who they have a good relationship or a good rapport with their employer, and they're able to go to the employer and explain XYZ, okay, I'm not really feeling very well. This is the reason why I'm not feeling well, and be able to explain. But then there's some that don't. So again, that secrecy that has to be there, because you can't openly admit that this is what you're experiencing.
What about in personal relationships? Because Lisa spoke about it last week, and Lisa just messaged and said she's in a Zoom meeting, but she's still listening. So we're hoping that her meeting will be able to accommodate her. She does apologize, so we're hoping that she will be able to join us. But in a personal relationship, because both Lisa and Katrina spoke about pain and the pain that you may not be able to fulfill your duties as a mom, or you may not be able to fulfill your duties as a partner, particularly as far as sex is concerned. So how does that impact on women suffering from endometriosis? That kind of isolation that you spoke about. Work is one thing, but when you go home now to a partner, that may be something totally different.
And especially if you don't have a partner who is supportive. So I've had women who have come to me and expressed feelings of inadequacy, not feeling worthy, shame about their bodies, simply because they are told that they are less of a woman because they can't fulfill those types of functions or roles that they should be able to fulfill. So for instance, the sex like you're speaking about. And then of course, then if they do decide that, okay, let's try it. And then the pain that comes along with those sexual experiences as well, and not being able to express that to their partner.
How would you suggest that you go about, first of all, talking to your workplace? Should you write a letter? Should you, like you know, should you speak to your HR? Should you tell your boss? How do you go about it, trying to let your workplace know that this is something real that you're going through?
First of all, I would say determine what type of relationship you have with your employer. Maybe may not be your direct employer, maybe it might be HR. If you do have a good relationship and you can speak to HR and HR can in turn speak to your employer, then that's good. If you don't, speak to your medical doctor. See if your doctor can write a letter on your behalf. That way you don't have to have that uncomfortable situation discussion if that is going to be uncomfortable for you. See if your
Right.
doctor can write a letter and you can submit that to the organization so that they are aware of what is happening.
Yeah.
And that's not that you're just staying home because you want to stay home. It's just truly you cannot make it.
In a relationship now, more sensitive, this is somebody, you know, even if it's a visiting union, or if you're living with a person, how do you broach the subject to tell your partner, this is how I feel? And last week we had Aishaka McNeil commenting, and he suggested that men need to be more educated. So how do you share that information then with your partner?
Again, I agree with Aishaka McNeil. More education needs to be, more educational awareness needs to be brought to society and community as a whole. As it relates to relationships, we have to foster some open communication here. We have to be able to express exactly what we're feeling when we are feeling it. We know our bodies as females, so we know when something doesn't feel right. We know when we can push ourselves, and we know when we have to take a step back. Yeah. So we have to be able to express that openly with a partner. And if the partner still does not understand, then maybe looking for some research that you can actually give to them that they can read up on exactly what is happening. Because having a female as a partner, and it's supposed to be a partnership, right? It can't be one-sided where the male gets whatever he wants and the female gets whatever she wants. It's supposed to be a partnership. And so if it is a true partnership, it means that you should be able to speak openly with each other and express how you're feeling within any given context. Sometimes that is not what happens, right?
True.
And then if that is the case, see if you and your partner can come in and have a conversation with the doctor. Let the doctor explain it fully to both parties, so that then both parties are more aware of what is happening. Sometimes a male may take the instruction from a medical doctor, a medical practitioner, as something being, significant, that, they can then understand what's happening with the female. So go from that angle as well.
Okay. Well, but let's go back to flash to what you told me earlier, that Dr. Barker is usually at the beginning and you're coming somewhere near to the end, because it is a grouping of people who have to help this woman or help women through this process. So when does a woman who's been diagnosed with endometriosis, when does she come to you?
So with the multidisciplinary approach that Dr. Barker and GRB Medical Center has, it's that, okay, they're going to see Dr. Barker first. He does whatever he needs to do and gives his diagnosis.
Right.
Then at that point, they are offered the services, my services, in terms of coming to see me. Everybody doesn't always take up that offer, but some women do. And the women that do, it's because, okay, they've been at this by themselves for so long that they need some help. Help either with deciding on the next course of action, because Dr. Barker would give them, these scenarios, the solutions that they can work with. But again, sometimes because everything can be so overwhelming, or it can be that, you're now being heard, and then it feels so surreal that you're now being heard, that all the emotions and everything float to the top. And so it's then there that we sit down and we try to process everything and then make alternative steps. So usually it's right after his diagnosis that they come to see me. Then the action plan, next steps are decided. And then If it's surgery, then they go and have their surgery, and then I see them again after surgery.
Okay. So what are some of the frequently asked questions when women come to you?
Frequently asked questions. Okay, so I am an endo survivor. So it makes it a little easier for me to be able to have dialogues about this condition. Sometimes women feel as though they're not understood. And even though somebody may say, or a friend or a family member may say, okay, well, I have painful periods sometimes as well. And then that helps to trivialize what the female is feeling, right? So some of the frequently asked questions that I would get is, how painful will this surgery be?
Yeah.
How soon after surgery will I be able to get up and just move around and do what I need to do to get on with life? What else? Will I wake up after surgery? That's one of the questions.
Yeah, I'm sure going into surgery, women will have some trepidation about that. What about pain management though? I mean, is it just painkillers or, after the surgery, should you just stay in bed for 2 weeks or, what kind of pain management is available?
So of course that's up to the doctor. So I don't deal with the medication at all. So the doctor will prescribe whatever he thinks is necessary in terms of pain management. But I always suggest to try to get up and start moving as soon as possible. So if you have your surgery, say you have your surgery in the afternoon, then the next morning, if you can get up and start moving around. Because I find that if you lie down in bed too long, then the muscles tend to seize up and then it gets more difficult for you to get up and move. Once you get up and move, it then makes your healing process a whole lot smoother and it goes a lot faster, quicker in terms of recovery.
How quickly after the surgery can you start having sex again?
I would say at least 6 weeks.
Okay.
At least 6 weeks, giving your body enough time to heal. And I'm not saying the outer part of you may be healed, but of course then there's still internal healing, which can take up to a year for some women, because inside is still very tender and very sensitive. But I would say at least 6 weeks.
What can your partner do in that 6 weeks to help you heal and get through this whole process?
Being there, listening. Sometimes we don't want suggestions as females. Sometimes we just want somebody to hear and to listen to what we are going through. Sometimes that's all we need. Yeah. To try and pamper us as much as possible, especially after surgery. They have a lot of females who have to do every single thing in the household. Yeah. So from when they wake up in the morning, it's making breakfast and it's cleaning, or it's making sure children have to get sent off to school, or it's making sure a husband has everything he needs for work, or it's about making lunch and it's about making dinner. So try to pamper us as much as possible. Let us be able to lie down in bed, have breakfast in bed. I mean, how many of us get to do that on a regular basis? Not really many of us, right? And so just those little things. For me, it's always the little things. It's about being heard, being listened to. It's about being comforted. It's about, if I want to cry, let me cry and just be there as a shoulder to lean on. It's those little things, those little comforts that I think that women crave, especially after surgery.
What can I do as a friend of someone who has endometriosis and had surgery? What could I do as a friend?
You can check in. And when I say check in, I mean, give the person a call or send a WhatsApp message. See how the person is doing. Maybe the person might be bored at home by themselves. They might be at home by themselves and they may be bored and they might just want some company. Whatever little thing you can do in terms of reaching out and connecting. And that's the thing, the connection is what we need. Especially now during COVID, we need that connection even more, right? Because we are social beings. And so in whatever way you can do, reach out. We have so much technology at our disposal now. Use that, utilize that, and try and reach out. Do video calls if you need to. And just look at the person, see the person, try and reaffirm the person. Because during that time, when somebody is suffering with chronic pain, we don't feel pretty. We don't feel beautiful. We feel fat. We feel ugly. we feel unwanted. So positive affirmations are what we need, until we can do it for ourselves.
Mhm. How can when would the person reach out to you? Because as you said, you're at the end, so you're there with them. So you've had a consultation, you've talked them through what's going to happen, you've allayed their fears, but they're now home during that 6 week period that you recommended. And like you said, they're lonely, they may have more fears. Can they reach out to you again, or when should they know, okay, listen, it's time that you spoke to somebody who is professional, you've spoken to your girlfriend, spoke to your husband or boyfriend, but you need to talk to somebody. When do you self determine that it's time to contact a professional like you again?
For me, how I operate is that when I make that initial connection, then I call after you've had your surgery. I will make a call, touch base, connect. Then I tend to add people to WhatsApp, so then I can do a weekly check-in. And that's my method. Everybody doesn't have the same method. So then a client can always contact me if they need to. I find if you think that every day you get up or you wake up and you really don't feel like yourself, especially probably after the first 2 days, because obviously you're not gonna feel like yourself right away, obviously after surgery, but especially like say a week has passed and you're still feeling down about yourself, you are feeling as though you don't really have anyone in your circle that you can talk to, that you trust, I would say then is when you need to reach out and say something, call, send a message, whatever it is you need to do. But as I said, for me, how I operate is that I make contact before, I call after you've had your surgery, I add you to my WhatsApp so that then I can also check in with you on a regular basis and you can reach out to me whenever you need to. Of course, you don't have access to me 24/7, which is understandable, but the number is still there and you can still send a WhatsApp message.
All right. Well, let me go to Tammy. Tammy, we've heard from Brenda. Brenda wrote, she's been talking to us. What stuck out to you? I know last week you commented about the importance of that support in the women's empowerment group. How do you think that, based on what Brenda said, that women can really help each other with endometriosis and all that comes with it?
All right, good night to everyone again. I really think that women together, we're stronger, and we don't really understand basically because power to Katrina and the endometriosis Lennis, because I don't think that I would have made it so far with that. I believe that I would have conquered from day one. That's the truth. I cannot handle pain. Honestly, I can't handle pain. And just listening to Miss Roach, all I'm thinking about is support all the time. Education and support. Be educated and be supportive. Those are the two things that really, really, really stood out for me, because if you are educated about the whole the symptoms of endometriosis and how it is how painful it is, it calls you then to be more, sympathize with these ladies and be more supportive with them. So I think that the group will be able to be more supportive with these ladies, especially having Katrina on board with the group. We'll be able then to support her as she support these indoor learners.
Yeah. And Katrina is in the group tonight. She's not feeling the best, so we're not going to ask her any questions or anything. We're glad that she feels good enough to be able to join us, even though we can't see her. And of course, Katrina, we wish you so much better. But I want to go back to Tiffany, because that whole thing about education, Tiffany, if you're still there, what are some of the key things that your group wants both men and women to know?
Hello?
Yeah, hi Tiffany. I was
Yes, can you hear me?
asking what are the key things that you want your group, what do you want men and women to know? What are those key things that they have to know to bring on that kind of sympathy and empathy that Tammy was talking about?
Good night again to everybody. First thing I will start with the men.
Mhm.
Reason why we can have some men that can be very, very insensitive, whether it's a boyfriend, whether it's a male friend or a husband. And
Our work colleague? What about work
our work
colleague?
colleague, yes, even a work colleague.
Mhm.
They need, first of all, to educate themselves. As Ms. Roach was saying, there's internet there, lots of information. Yes, you will get false information, but if you don't understand something, there's always people you can reach out to and ask a question. Nothing wrong with asking a question to find out what you need to know. Put that macho man thing aside. I pretty real, you know what I mean? Put that macho man thing aside and picture your wife, your girlfriend, as a sister, a mother. They're lying in pain, can't do nothing, can't even open their eyes because the pain is so something you can never find the words to explain. And tell yourself, oh my gosh, this person is going through so much pain. I need to be different. I need to look at them different, help them, you know, be to their aid, comfort them. You might not, even if you don't know what to say, just be there, sit there, you know, do you need something? Be like that. And if we can get more men being like that towards women with endometriosis and any other gynecological problem, life will be better for us. Women now, we are very emotional. We like to be loved. We like to be taken care of. You understand? And there's a lot of women out there that living in silence. They don't know who to talk to. They're afraid to talk about their issues. So whether it's a friend, a mother, a sister, because they believe that other people are going to go out there and say all bad things about them. But to the women out there that are listening, we are wonderful creatures made by God, and we are strong. And we can fight any battle as long as we have faith. Keep that faith and believe that God can heal us along with our doctors, and pray. Pray is the key thing. Even if you don't have somebody there to support you, always have it in your mind that there's a God above that's going to give you that support, whether, you know what I mean, the pain is there or not, God is there. Just hold on and be strong. We are strong. And keep the faith.
All right. Thanks so much, Tiffany. I want to say good evening to Lisa Bell. Lisa has been able to join us. Good evening, Lisa. It's good to have you on company tonight. I know you had another meeting.
Hi, good night to everyone. Sorry for being late, but I'm here now.
Yes, we're glad that you're here. Now, last week, you know, you told us that you don't have endometriosis, you have fibroids, but the pain and the challenges are so similar, and sometimes even the symptoms. So tonight our topic is the loneliness of living with pain. What was it like for you after you had your surgery and your recovery? And how do you relate to this whole topic of pain and isolation and loneliness that comes with it?
Well, for me, pain before the surgery was something that, even though I would explain it to persons how I was feeling, is like no one actually understood or could comprehend. There are times when persons would say, "Okay, I'm gonna bring some painkillers for you," but I would say, "No, not that Panadol is not gonna work," and people would be like, "But that's the strongest dose," but I'm like, "It's not gonna work, trust me." Even when I would like take, sometimes I would actually like overdose. I would actually like take more than I'm supposed to take, than I was supposed to take, and that would result to me like throwing up, and stuff like that. But again, no one understood. So even though I'm explaining to someone, yes, I took 2 instead of 1 because I really could not bear this pain. People would say to me, but why would you do that? So there's this lack of understanding. People do not quite comprehend the pain that you go through. Then after I had the surgery, in terms of isolation and stuff like that, everybody kind of think that when you have surgery and everything, they're kind of sensitive. So it's like they don't want to ask you questions and stuff like that. So you kind of feel a little isolated because like you really, as Brenda said, we want someone to talk to us then. But a lot of people just say, I'm just checking in on you, but I want you to say to me, so how you feeling? You're lying in the right position? Everything okay? You can walk, you're walking with your back, in your back. That's what we want. We want that support when you have surgery, because these gynecological issues, they are not something that one could, walk with on their shoulders by themselves. You really do need support, and you need friends, good friends.
How did you share your information with your friends? Because Brenda was suggesting, you sit and have a conversation at work, if it is, even if you have to get information from your doctor or have your doctor, speak to them or send in information or bring your partner into the doctor. So how were you able to share information to let them know, listen, this thing is really, really hurting me. I can't even explain to you.
Well, honestly, I would just do research and like walk them through the research. Like if I go on, like I used to watch a lot of YouTube videos. I used to go on, I Google a lot of different symptoms and complications to the fibroids and stuff like that. And I would just walk through it with persons. That's how I educated them. So a lot of people actually know certain things just by me explaining them, taking baby steps and explaining it and allowing them to ask me questions and I answer in the best way that I know how. In terms of the doctor, I think because it's kind of personal. So I never wanted anyone to go with me to the doctor. I just really, I would rather when I come home, let me tell you how everything went. But in terms of being in that room, it's trust me, it's not a comfortable situation for anybody to be in that room with you.
Yeah. But how would you describe the pain though, Katrina? Because when you go to the doctor and you tell him you have a pain, he says it's sticking pain, is it a dull ache? Like how would you describe the pain?
Who you wanted to answer that?
You think you can describe it, Lisa?
The pain.
Katrina, sorry, go ahead.
For me, there are so many different levels of pain when it comes to endometriosis and so many different things that you feel. Sometimes it could be a case where you are having severe cramps, just like shocking pains, one. Then there are other times where you feel it as somebody just get hot oil and pour on the abdomen, two.
Wow.
Then there's this the pain part where you have a lot of pricking and stuff that feels like if you got cactus in the abdomen. So there's so many different levels to the torture chamber, as I will refer to it, because every flare comes with a different kind of pain. I don't ever think that I had experienced the same pain at any given time. I think the pain is always the new and is the more painful with the more flares you get.
Wow. So
Yeah, a lot more intense. Sorry, I had to interject. It's a lot more intense.
So the pain can run on for how long? The pain can go on for, is it hours? Is it days? Can you be in pain for weeks?
Well, honestly, I remember being in the hospital for 2 months straight. And the thing about it is that the pain would not subside. And even though I had instances where the pain would subside, it would always be a case where the IV went down, infiltrated, so you had to get the IV recited. And sometimes hours pass, sometimes before they pass, before you can actually have the IV recite. So what happens is the pain come back 10 times worse. So then you have to start all over again with the pain management. So that there's some little things there that offset the pain management, but you need to be more visual and see what's going on, and you as a person will know what you're experiencing. So so sometimes I think that boys always say that doctors need to also sit and listen rather than talking when you're talking, because only you can explain how you are feeling. They might have an idea, but they don't have the actual concept of how endometriosis affects a person.
Wow. Because Brenda was talking about the fact that people do not understand the levels of pain, how, and especially within the workplace, people think that, oh, you just don't want to work or you just want to get time from home. What's it been like for you as far as work is concerned, Katrina? Do you have you found situations where people have been understanding, or you found situations where they haven't been as supportive as you needed?
Okay, when I was at the Ministry of Health, I found that my boss and his secretary were very supportive to the point where even though my boss was a male, he knew exactly when my period was due, because obviously he had that week allotted on the calendar for me to be off because my periods were that bad. And the pain was excruciating. Sometimes you go to work, you can't function, you go to work on a normal day, and then you have no indication that you're going to have a fear pops up, and you have to leave and go to the hospital, or the ambulance has to come. But in relation to pain, nobody cannot understand your pain, because you might have a person with severe endometriosis and has no pain, and you will have some person that has stage 1 and the pain is horrible. So the stage does not determine the amount of pain you are in. So I guess everybody needs to understand that. And when they understand that, they would understand that everybody individually go through pain differently. Some people have high tolerance for pain, some people have low tolerance for pain. And for me, my pain level, I would go to the hospital if it was a case where I exhausted all of my options, which would be oral medications that's supposed to work. And when I find that they are not working, that is an indication for me then to get to the hospital, because the only other thing then would be pain management through IV medication.
Wow. Brenda, let's flesh out what Katrina was just talking about, because I see some others in the conversation with us tonight talk about being frustrated and being stigmatized and people being dismissive about what they're going through.
Yes, and those are exactly how women feel. And like Katrina said, if you don't go through it, you don't really understand. Can you believe that there's still some women that ask me, what is endometriosis? There's still women out there that do not know about this condition. And it amazes me whenever I come across someone who is not aware. I would expect that more from the males, but from the females, not so much. But it still happens.
Why would it be a stigma associated with it? Because it's a situation that affects women, because it has to deal with the reproductive system, and we don't even want to use the word vagina, or we don't want to use the word uterus, so we don't want to use all of these things. I mean, what is responsible for the stigma? Aren't we living in a much more liberalized and educated society where there's this taboo about anything to do with gynecological issues?
We're supposed to be living in a more liberalized society and world. But yes, there is still the stigma, because again, a lot of people, especially within the Caribbean, we don't like to talk about menstrual cycles. We don't like to talk about period, bloods, all those things that naturally happen to a woman, to a female. Some children get a menstrual cycle and the parents have not spoken to them about what it entails, how they're supposed to put on a sanitary napkin, what's supposed to happen. You believe that is still happening? So again, it means that there is still stigma out there as it relates to having menstrual cycles.
Wow. What do you suggest I mean, Tiffany said that, the Katrina Endometriosis Fund Association is working to educate people and get information out there, particularly to men. Is this a conversation that should be had in schools, in churches? What do you suggest where the conversations should be had? And how often is it something that should be on the curriculum? What do you think about that?
Yes, I totally agree. I think that these discussions should be happening everywhere, in churches, in schools. Maybe I think there's what program is it that they have in schools now? The home health or something like that. They can
Yeah.
incorporate it into that. The same way that we have conversations, or even if we don't have conversations, is the same way. Okay, so period poverty still exists as well,
Yes.
right? So the same way that a male can get access to a condom pretty much free of charge, why can't females get access to sanitary napkins and sanitary products the same way? So the same way that we treat with condoms and those types of things, we need to treat with females and menstrual cycles and those types of things. It is a natural part of a woman's body that every month this happens. Why is it that we still have problems talking about it? And again, the same way that the KEFA Association is raising awareness, we have so much technology at our fingertips. Keep spreading the word as much as possible. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, everything. Every avenue that we have, utilize it to create that awareness.
Well, let me go to Lisa. Lisa, were you, because you said you don't want, going to a doctor is a very private thing, and you don't necessarily want somebody to go to the doctor with you. But were you ever ashamed, embarrassed, I felt that, oh my God, I don't want to tell my partner, or I don't want to tell anybody because I feel as though I'm going to be stigmatized? Did you have that feeling with fibroids?
Dale, no, I never felt that way. The only embarrassment that I would really have is, I guess, when it would have been time for intimacy. You know, just it's uncomfortable. And obviously with the you're in pain and you do it's just that. But no.
But other than that, you felt, this is a natural, normal thing. I'm just gonna talk about it, have the conversation, if need be.
Yes,
Yeah.
I would say yes to that. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, is Aisha here? Because I wanted to have a chat with Aisha. I'm not sure if she's
Dale?
here. Yeah.
Before you go on, there was quite an interesting conversation going on in the chat where Katrina was talking about the stigma as it relates to being infertile. And I think that is a real thing. And people make it seem as though you're less of a female because you can't have a child.
Children.
And that is a real thing. I mean, I can speak openly about myself because it happened to me. I was unable to conceive, but I was never made to feel like less of a woman. My husband was always supportive. He just wanted me to feel good, for me to not feel sick all the time. But everyone doesn't have that support. And so again, the stigma that comes along with that is very real as well.
Yeah. I wanted to talk to you about that. So I'm glad you brought it up at this point in time. It can be very challenging for women because, we're judged by if you have a man, if you have children, if you do this and all of these other things. But I want to go to the others in the chat to find out from them if they have any questions or comments, because it's now 8:43, so we have about 17 more minutes in our conversation. So any questions, any comments, or any suggestions from anyone who is here with us in this discussion? Feel free to go right ahead. Claudia, you said that it made you feel invisible. Yeah, we can see how that can happen because it could be isolated. Any questions? Comments? Okay. All right. Well, while everybody's getting their thoughts together, let me go back to you. Is that a question?
There's one there by Paul. Paul, go ahead.
Hello? All right. Sharice asks if there are any tips for pain management, Brenda.
Tips for pain management. I know for me, it was hot water bottles used to be my best friend. Having multiple pillows. I was always a pillow person, so I needed one on my stomach, I needed one between my legs, I needed one at my back. For that kind of comfort. Somebody just to rub your tummy sometimes. That used to help me, honestly. Seeing how best you can get, pain medication prescribed from your medical doctor, that helps as well. But I think in terms of pain, you need to have the comfort. For me, that's what it was about, having the comfort. Katrina's saying, yeah, the pillows for sure. Yeah, the pillows work wonders.
Sure, yeah, Katrina said pillows for sure.
They do.
Yeah.
I used to have about 4 pillows around me at any given time. So yeah, that's what I used to do.
Socks as well. Has anyone had bleeding from the navel when your period is due? That's a question that's come in. I don't know if anybody's had that experience, or if you could speak to that, Brenda. If you want to ask the question, you can raise your hand, and our tech guy Dwayne can open your mic, or you can just go right ahead, because I'm hearing some noise. If you don't have to speak, you're gonna have to mute your microphone. Is there somebody who has a question? No?
If Katrina, she wants to make a comment.
Yeah.
Hi.
In relation to what Brenda was saying with pain management.
I can hardly hear you. I'm sorry.
You can hear me? You can hear me?
No, barely. But go ahead.
Wait, tell me if you can hear me now. You can hear me now?
I think so. Barely, but go ahead. I'll try to make it out. Maybe the others can hear you.
Right. Right. You can. Right. In relation to the pain management, I find that sometimes people see persons with endometriosis or gynecological conditions as drug seekers, because we tend to go through so much medications. And it's not that you want to go through so much medications, but you have to find the medication that works for you specifically, because I might be able to take tramadol. You might be allergic to tramadol. A Panadol might just work for you. But sometimes I remember from personal experience, I went through so many different medications, from morphine, back down, you name it. So, it's a stage that you go through, and you have to find what works for you. And another thing I must say, that even with the stigma attached, because sometimes when you hear a person say they may be hospital, the first thing people say again. So, it's like you don't want to talk to people, because before you even open your mouth and say what's going on, the stigma already starts to come out from their actions or from their first words. So, it is, so when you talk about mental impact, that is a major thing, because you're alone. You're alone going through this, because you cannot talk to anyone, because you're not comfortable, because the reactions that you normally get actually turns you off or put you in a shell. So when it comes to certain things, if you don't have a good support system, and I keep saying a good support system is crucial to recovery and to the journey.
All right, Brenda, I want to go back, because there was a question asking about when will they know that I have endo. We're talking about information and readily available on the internet, but you still want to caution that you can't self-diagnose. So what are some of these things and symptoms you would say to a woman, okay, it is time for you to go and see your doctor?
So of course, the excruciating menstrual cycles, so the very, very painful periods. Sometimes you can have extremely heavy periods. That's not normal either. What else? Being unable to eat when you're having your menstrual cycle, not being able to keep food down, so vomiting as well. Again, the painful sexual intercourse. What else is there? There is the fatigue,
back pains, sciatica
the back pains, yes.
There are where that you would find yourself being anemia a lot, because the blood count drops a lot, so you have to get blood transfusions. There are headaches, there are blackouts, you name it.
Yeah. And Brenda, somebody sent a message and said sometimes Google Doc is even more comforting than the actual doctors. And Dr. Barker touched on this last week, and he said sometimes it takes so long, like you said, Brenda, sometimes 5 years for people to be diagnosed. And he suggested that if you're comfortable, you know your body, then oh, there, my light has gone out. And you know your body, then you go and see another doctor. You go and see somebody else.
Exactly.
How do you reinforce that to women? A lady here said her diagnosis took 12 years.
Yeah, mine took 10, so I can understand.
Wow.
Keep advocating for yourselves. I keep saying that just because there are people that are not going to understand what you're going through, but there are people that do understand. If you realize that you are going through this and you're battling through this for a number of years, I don't think you should wait till it gets to years, but if you realize that you're battling this at least for a number of months, seek alternative opinions. There is a doctor out there that will listen to you.
Yeah, somebody said it actually took them 14 years. Let me go back to Tammy. Tammy, you still with us? Because they can't see everybody.
You have 2 questions.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah, Tammy, I know that you are one pushing for women to work together and collaborating together and supporting each other. What would you say to other women out there, who are probably watching and may not have endometriosis? How would you encourage them, or what would you tell them about getting involved to give support?
One thing that I would say is to these women that are watching that probably don't have the endometriosis, how would you feel if you were in these young ladies' position? And that's something that I would like them to reflect on for a long time. And I guess based on their answer, that it will make it easier then for them to reach out, because everybody will have a different solution on how they can fit into the whole empowering or supporting. But I for sure, Katrina have my full support. That's all I can say. She have my full support in terms of going forward and empowering these women, because I know if I was in this position, I really would want support. So therefore, I would support these women as much as I can. So even though that we might not have the opportunity to sit down and read something on Google or ask a doctor or find Mrs. Roach to find out what is going on, or find Katrina or any other indoor lioness, we can at least just support them, just campaign with them, just share something on your page, even if that you don't know them personally. Just put something on your timeline instead of posting all the negative things all the time. Just find something, instead of, this is what I found today about endometriosis, because you might not be a friend of Katrina's to see what she's posting. But if we can, all of us can rally around each other and post. Just post something once a month or every other day, or some story from other country. Find something and just tag. Let Katrina come up with a hashtag that whenever we post something, we can hashtag that everything go on. If one setting, we need to support as saying Dr. Roach all the time. Speaking into being, receive it, Dr. Roach, soon to be Dr. Roach. You think of that?
Not soon to be, but yeah, you're speaking it into being. So thanks.
Yes, I think that we can come up with a hashtag and everybody just post something that could be some kind of research, find something about endometriosis and just put it out there. The more people see it, a lot of people didn't know about COVID. Just picture that. A lot of people didn't know about COVID. We only heard it came from a bat. But everybody posting about it all the time. It called you to go and look. We didn't know about the vaccine, but then we went looking. So if we flood the timelines all the time with something, whether it be to Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, or TalkTik, whatever it name, just keep flooding it with endometriosis. Not just for the month of endometriosis, we can continue a campaign. Because I think Katrina's slogan for
the so stupid these people is. Come on, ma'am.
Yes, we can hear you. You have a question, sir?
Come on, yeah.
Oh, somebody else.
What he's talking to somebody else?
If he did, listen to what this girl put here in the chat, man. See that these girls.
I was saying that that we can go ahead and keep campaigning. Katrina's her slogan, I think, for the Women International Day is that she chose to challenge the stigma attached to women with gynecological issues. And that is the slogan that she's pushing for the year till next Women Empowerment Day. So we can come on board, everybody, could be men, women who are listening. We can start posting something daily, weekly, monthly, something about endometriosis and tag Katrina in it. So it pops up on somebody's page. And then we just do a challenge about educating and supporting. That is.
Let me ask you this, because Katrina made a very interesting point in the workplace. She said that her boss was very sympathetic, and he could see, when she was having time for her period, and anticipate that maybe it would be a challenging one. It was very accommodating. What can we do, Tammy, as women working with each other? Because sometimes I find that as women we are hardest on each other. So what do you suggest we can do as women to help endoliosis in our workplace?
Standing beside them and speaking out as well. Even it's even stronger if you don't have a symptom, a disease, something, but you are advocate for it. There are a lot of people that they don't have the HIV virus or AIDS, but they advocate for these things. There are some women that have never been into a domestic abusive relationship, but they advocate to end violence against women. Same with men. So even though that we might not have the endometriosis, we can still campaign and show support by saying, okay, the Women Empowerment Group, we can have a seminar about endometriosis to educate other people, because if people see that we are supporting, even though we don't have it, then other people say, well, look, I could go and support too. And then it would
specifically in the workplace, what can you do? Like Lisa said, that call and ask me how are you doing. Can I come to your desk and say, I know that this is around the time.
Post a note. It could be a post a note. I remember at Water Authority, when I was working at Water Authority, there was a particular bathroom. Whenever you go in the bathroom, there were some sticky notes. To this day, nobody don't know who this person was, but there were some sticky notes all the time on the mirror. So whenever you go into the female bathroom, there was a sticky note there with something about encouragement, and they never took them down. There were so much sticky notes there on different parts of the glass. So even something like that, a person, a person at work has the endometriosis or whatever, and it's painful, you can go work a morning and just put a little note on the table and say, you know what, I know you might not be up to it today, but
Okay. All right. I think we lost Tammy, and we have 3 minutes. You're still here? But we have 3 minutes, and I want everybody. Lisa, your last words. What would you want people to take away from our discussion tonight? Lisa Bell.
Support. Really support each other. Bring that comfort. Bring that level of understanding. Try to understand. Quickly, if I may, I remember a couple months back when I was in hospital, there was a young lady who she was having the surgery for her endometriosis, and she was crying the day before because she was worried that, she said, suppose I don't ever get children. And I in my state, I remember going over by her bed, and I stayed there. I sat in the chair and I was talking to her, and I was just filling her with hope. And that is what we need to do to each other. Be that comfort, be that sister, and just be a listening ear, but give support.
All right. Tiffany Griffith, as the Public Relations Officer for KEFA, Katrina Endometriosis Fund Association. 30 seconds to tell me what do you want people watching or listening to take away from this conversation?
The knowledge. Let what they heard coming from Dr. Roach, from Lisa.
Well, she's not a doctor yet, Miss Roach.
But we speaking internet existence. Come on. What's it? Tamika and Katrina and you yourself, to let that knowledge stay here. and take it next door and take it down the street. And if you're in the polyclinic sitting down and you don't know somebody and you just the same way you form conversation about all kind of thing, form a conversation with a lady friend, and you know how conversation go from one thing to the other. Just spread the knowledge that you would have gained tonight, because it can help somebody who is there living in silence. And we need to break the silence. We need men to give us more support. Walk with us for a cure sometime soon. Like just how to find this vaccine quick for COVID-19. I pray that the find something for endometriosis and any other gynecological problem going on. And just let us keep praying for each other, support each other.
And I do want to thank the men who are in, because I saw some questions coming up from some men in the group. So we're so grateful. We had some last week and we're glad that we have some this week. Katrina, before we give the very final say to Brenda Roach, her psychologist tonight, what do you want people to take away from this conversation, Katrina?
What I would say is that we need to educate ourselves, that we can educate people, one, that you are not alone, and if you decide that you want to come out and speak about it, you don't have to be out there in the public. You can be anonymous, find somebody who you can relate to, as they say, find your tribe. And it's easier to talk to someone who has experienced endometriosis, because obviously someone that hasn't walked in our shoes may find it hard to understand. But what I would say is that loneliness is a choice, and we need to break the stigma, not just for us, but for the next generation that is coming. Because if we do not break the stigma attached now, later down it's going to be hard for girls to even talk about periods, because as you know, it is taboo, and it will always be taboo, because they need to modernize gynecology and not just think gynecology as obstetrics, basically.
Brenda Roach, our psychologist, your last words as we close out tonight's conversation.
I would say I support everything else that everyone has said, but I would say share your story, own your story. Don't be afraid to share your story. I share mine freely and openly, because as Katrina would have said, what you share will help someone else. Continue to advocate for yourselves. If no one else is going to do it for you, you have to do it for yourself. Support each other, just like what Tamika was saying, just like what the PRO was saying. Support each other. Be our brothers and sisters keepers. Yes, stand up for each other when we can. Some women have not gone through this, and that's fine. My sister never went through it, but she has always supported me. She's actually on this chat now. She doesn't know anything about it. She hasn't experienced the pain, but she's always there. So support each other. We as women need to lift each other up all the time.
Correct. And thank you so much, Brenda Roach, our psychologist, for our conversation tonight. This is the second week. We have 2 more weeks of conversations about endometriosis, and the topic tonight was the loneliness of living with pain. Special thanks to Katrina, who is the head of the Katrina and the Endometriosis Fund Association, KEFA, and Tamika Newton from the Scarred Not Shattered Women Empowerment Group. Lisa Bell, Mornings with Lisa. I look forward to it every morning, Lisa. And of course, the Public Relations Officer for KEFA, Tiffany Griffith. We want to thank everybody who was on tonight. And thanks for asking the questions and sharing your experiences, even though it was just in the chat. We were still able to get some information based off the questions that you asked this Friday night. And we're still on curfew, but I wish everybody a good night and a great weekend. And we'll be back next week, and we'll post the information to let you know what the topic is going to be about. And we'll be here at 8 on Facebook again. So good night, everybody. Thank you so much again. And we'll see you again next week.
Good night.
Bye.
Feel better,
Thank you.
Katrina.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
No.